If you're an entrepreneur, a founder, or a leader in an organization, your communication skills are going to determine how your team responds. It's going to determine your company culture and how you're going to move forward. I'm Michael Esposito, and I work with founders and entrepreneurs just like you in order to help you communicate better and more effectively in your team meetings and in your team one-on-ones. What I've learned in all of this coaching that I've done over the years is that leaders like you don't have an issue in terms of working through problems. You have an issue with communicating through those problems. And that's why today in this video, I'm going to help you break down what are the issues that we have in difficult conversations and a simple framework on how to solve for them. Stay with me here. Let me ask you something. Have you ever left a conversation thinking, wow, that escalated quickly? Or, I didn't really mean to say that? Or, why did I react that way? If you're asking yourself these questions, then you're obviously self-aware and reflective. And I want you to recognize that these kinds of issues happen everywhere. They happen in the workplace, they happen out in public, they happen in marriages, in relationships, and in friendships. In all sorts of relationships, you're going to witness issues like this. And the thing is that the argument, again, is not the problem. The problem is the story that we're attaching to the argument. It's the assumptions that we make when the other person is speaking. It's the tone that we use when expressing our feelings. It's the way that we react and respond to the other person. And this right here, this is where leadership breaks down. This is where it changes the dynamic of your leadership in your team, your marriage, your friendships, and all around you. And that's why it's so important to stick around for my framework on how to solve for this. Recently, I had a disagreement. Yes, even me. I'm not perfect or immune to this. I had a disagreement recently, and honestly, I could have handled it differently. I could have been a little bit more emotionally objective. I could have seen the situation for what it was rather than create my own story and disagreeing in a way that started causing conflict. Our tone was certainly not appropriate for each other. And on reflecting on that, I found that a lot of work could be done in order to fix it and solve for it. And this is why this kind of work is so important. Because as leaders, when we recognize that we're making assumptions, that we're telling a story rather than listening to what's actually happening in front of us, and when our tone is slightly disrespectful or pointed at the other person, it's going to change the dynamic of the conversation. And that's why it's so important to be able to solve for this and to be able to pause in those moments, regain our clarity, and lean into the work that we're about to do, to lean into the framework that I'm about to share with you. When we work on telling a different story, on listening to the other person, not creating assumptions, and changing our tone to be respectful to the other person, that's when we're able to truly be engaged in a disagreement respectfully while listening to the other person and coming to a collaborative or some sort of way forward that is going to promote the well-being of our organization and or our friendships and relationships. Before we jump into the framework, I just want to give you 3 simple techniques that you could use when in a disagreement. Become an objective observer. Just pull yourself out of the situation emotionally and observe the situation. The second is acknowledge the other person's feelings. When we acknowledge the other person's feelings, they feel seen and heard. And therefore, our emotional intelligence, all of our emotions are able to be more controlled. And the other person's as well. And the last one is have a shared goal in mind. Try to describe what does a win look like in this conversation. Is it grabbing coffee as friends afterwards? Is it getting through an agenda in the meeting and solving for a client's problem? What is the shared goal of this disagreement? Describe that together while working through it. By doing this, it's going to help improve your company culture because your team is watching. Communication is one of the biggest and most important skills that you can learn as a leader. Simon Sinek calls this psychological safety. Brené Brown refers to courageous conversations. When we think about these kinds of thought leaders, what they're helping us do as leaders is communicate more clearly, work on our disagreements with our team. You see, great leaders don't avoid conflict or disagreements. We engage in them, but we engage in them intentionally and thoughtfully, moving towards a shared goal. We're about to jump into my respect framework. And before we do that, if this video has given you some value, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I put out videos like this on a weekly basis. And make sure to get your copy of the free PDF that goes along with this video. R, regulate your emotions. How many times have you been in an argument and you felt it in your chest? You felt everything rising, your anger, your face turning red, all of that, right? Those are your emotions. And when we talk about emotional regulation, this is where it's key. This is where you got to turn it up as a leader right now. So how do you do it? Well, it's kind of simple. You just got to breathe. You see, we unconsciously breathe, but when we consciously breathe with intention, now we are starting to regulate our emotions. So take that deep breath, filling that chest up, and releasing. I mean, right now I feel calm. That's very calming. In fact, in all of my workshops, I typically do a breathing exercise where we do that about 4 times. But imagine being in an argument or a discussion where you're feeling all of your anger and anxiety and coming up and emotions coming up. Taking that deep breath, you're going to be able to just calm them a little bit. The next one is to just pause. In emotional regulation, it's about pausing, taking that moment to really take in and unpack what the other person has said, and at the same time, thinking about what you're going to say. You see, in the heat of a battle, in an argument like this, or in a disagreement, we tend to be reactive. One person says something, boom, we respond quickly. When we're regulating our emotions, and we're taking these breaths, and we're pausing, we're able to listen, actively listen to what the other person is saying, and pausing to then think about, how do we want to respond? How do I want to respond to what they're saying? So the R in regulate your emotions is really crucial as a leader. You're going to need this one for disagreements and even for stepping on the big stage. E, enter with curiosity. See, instead of, hey, you're wrong, how about share with me your perspective? I want to learn more. See, curious leaders, they want to learn. When you're in a growth mindset, you want to seek to understand. I love how Adam Grant put it. Think like a scientist. There's no right or wrong. There just is in the conversation, moving towards that shared goal together. So asking those open-ended questions and coming in with a sense of curiosity, it's going to change the tone of the conversation. You know, when we're talking about tones and tonalities, I mean, just think about it. If you're coming in curious and you're asking open-ended questions, you're no longer coming across as defensive or argumentative. You're actually coming across as curious, which is exactly what we want to do. We want to enter the conversation with a sense of curiosity, a desire to know more, seeking to understand. This is what we do as leaders. Leadership is about understanding other people and helping us drive towards a shared common goal. S, state your perspective clearly. Avoid passive-aggressive language. I mean, just think about that, right? How many times do we have or engage in passive-aggressive language? You see, the issue is that we're not communicating clearly. We're either being passive aggressive or sarcastic, which, by the way, when you break down sarcasm in the Latin form, it really just means cutting someone else. So when we're passive aggressive or using sarcasm in an argument, we're really derailing the conversation. So when you're in that conversation and asking questions with curiosity, make sure you're not asking them to lead towards your interest. Make sure you're asking them in a curious mind. And when you're stating your objective or what it is that you're trying to say, be clear, be straightforward, be blunt. It's okay to be blunt with someone when you have a disagreement. You're not looking to say anything that's negative or to be passive aggressive. You're going right down the line and letting them know, this is how I see things. Here's what I'm thinking. My concern about what you're saying is. We're being very clear. We're not being passive aggressive. We're not being sarcastic. We're being very clear about what it is that we're thinking and that we want to say. Don't allow for them to start painting or creating their own story about what you're saying. And that's what happens when we're vague. When we're vague and we say, I don't really know, I'm not sure, the way that I think or whatever. When you start speaking in those vague type of language, now that other person is creating their own story and assumptions. And we want to avoid that as well. That's why it's so important that we are blunt, we are clear, and we share with them exactly what we're thinking in that moment. Nobody wants you to come back a day or two later and say, oh, by the way, here's what I was thinking. You do it while you're in it. And you do it by taking that breath, taking that moment, asking those open-ended questions so that you can clearly respond. P, protect psychological safety. Oh man, this is so important. This is so important, especially in your position. You're a founder, you're a leader, you're an entrepreneur. You have other people who are looking up to you that you are guiding, whether they're contractors that you work with, peers that you network with, or even friends and family. I want you to recognize that people look up to you. If your team doesn't feel that they can disagree with you, if they don't think that they can share with you their ideas, then there's a trust breakdown. You have to make sure that they know that they are emotionally safe. So what does that mean? Well, simply it means that they know that they can engage with you and that there's not going to be repercussions on them. In other words, punitive repercussions in the workplace where maybe they don't get the contract because they had a disagreement with you. There's a famous YouTube video out there of a musician who was working with Michael Jackson. And for those of you who don't know who Michael Jackson is, please Google him. I'm so happy I got you young viewers on here with me. But Michael Jackson was the king of pop. He was at the height of all heights in the 80s. And he was putting together an instrumental part of one of his music videos. And in that instrumental, he went to one of the top drummers out there and he said, hey, listen, I'm doing this song and I want you to use these electric drums for this song. And the drummer said to him, no, I don't think the electric drums are going to sound good for the song that you're doing. He was saying this to Michael Jackson. But the thing is that we don't recognize is that Michael Jackson and this drummer had a relationship prior. And therefore there was psychological safety. The drummer felt safe and secure in his role that he can tell Michael Jackson, the king of pop, that he disagrees with his musical choices. Now, that psychological safety comes out of a mutual respect that Michael Jackson shared with him. It comes from his own credibility and his own self-respect that he has. And he felt that he had the need, because he was going to contribute to Michael Jackson's song, he felt the need to make sure that he met Michael Jackson as to where he was. You hired the best drummer for this video, and therefore I'm going to give you the best advice I can as the drummer for this video. So this drummer broke out his drum kit, played the version that Michael Jackson wanted from the electric side, and played it on his drum kit. And in the end, Michael Jackson went with the drum kit recording. That drummer was right, and it could have cost Michael Jackson millions of dollars had he have just not created the psychological safety for that drummer to speak up and be able to share his own experience as a drummer. So you, as a leader, you have to create that psychological safety for your team, for the people around you, to where they can confront you on challenging issues. They can disagree with you when you're saying or pushing an agenda forward. They can challenge you on difficult issues so that you can now work on it together, collaborate together to move towards that shared goal that I keep talking about, to be able to create that #1 song on the charts, or for you in your industry, just be the best at what you do. Psychological safety comes from the trust that you create as a leader. E, explore solutions together. That's right, explore solutions together. So yeah, you might be in charge, you might be the boss, you might be the leader, you might think that you're the boss or the leader, but the truth is, when you're having a disagreement, when you're in a challenging conversation, the best way to move forward is to explore solutions together. Your solution might be right, their solution might be right, but we're not going to know that until we start playing them all out together. And so until we move that ego aside, take the ego completely out of the conversation and move towards that shared goal, move towards exploring options. Okay, tell me about the way that you see it. Tell me about how you think this can work. Allow me to share how I see it working. Hey, where can we meet in the middle here? Or what looks like a win-win-win? You see, we have this conversation about where in every disagreement, there are 3 stories. There's your story, their story, and the real story. And when we're looking at win-win-win, it's you win, they win, we all win. That's what we're going for. That's what collaboration looks like. So by exploring different solutions together, by staying in the conversation together, by respecting each other and listening to each other, we're working towards that common goal. I want you to remember, collaboration is key as a leader. Collaboration is key, and collaboration comes out of working through problems together and exploring those solutions together. C, communicate with respect. I've said it before, you gotta communicate respectfully. Tone matters in these kinds of conversations. If you're speaking from a condescending tone, if you're speaking from an aggressive tone, they're picking up on that. That's gonna break trust. A condescending tone is gonna make the other person shut down. A tone that's aggressive might make that person wanna leave the conversation and hide. But you might feel that that's who you are. Well, I have news for you. As a leader, you can change. So tone matters. It really is important that as a leader, you take that deep breath and fix your tone. Change it. Get more balanced. Hey, if it feels fake to you in that moment, if you're thinking right now, you're saying, you know what? When I get angry, when I explode, when I'm feeling frustrated, my tone is argumentative. It is aggressive. It might be condescending. You might not label it all those ways, but maybe you recognize it that way. And here's something as a communication coach that I want to share with you. Whatever comes out of your mouth, in whatever way you decide to make it, it's yours. It's who you are. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, which is not what this video is about, but when we talk about imposter syndrome or feeling as though we are not acting as our true self, a lot of that is not true. A lot of that is false. If you change your tone, and it just doesn't feel like you, but it's a calmer, quieter, kinder tone, well, I got news for you. It actually is you. And it's probably a more respectful you. And if it's the first time you're doing it, well, all it takes is you to do it more often in those kinds of difficult conversations. And the more often you bring that calmer, maybe a slower cadence, maybe a kinder tone to your disagreement, the more it's going to feel like you. So I want you to recognize, I understand what you're saying. I recognize what you're saying, that sometimes it just doesn't feel like you because you're in the heat of battle and you're used to speaking a certain way when you're disagreeing with someone. But you see, this is what leadership's all about. It's about changing up what we used to do. It's about not relying on the old ways and the old habits of doing things, but learning new habits, new ways of doing things. And that might mean that you have to train yourself to speak a little kinder, to speak a little calmer, to really listen to the other person. It's so important that we do this, that we communicate with respect. As we communicate with respect, we are modeling the behaviors that we want done to ourselves. So if we're communicating with that respectful tone, well, guess what? The other person's going to communicate with a respectful tone as well. The other thing to think about is your body language. How are you holding yourself in this conversation? Are you crossing your arms, angry, showing them that you are closed off and don't even want to continue in this conversation? Or are you open-armed, showing them that you're willing to take on what they want to share with you? See, body language is part of respect. So make sure that when you're in the heat of battle, when you're in the argument, in the disagreement, if your arms are crossed, uncross them. Hey, it's not too late to uncross them, all right? So just uncross your arms, open up your hands, open yourself up, make yourself vulnerable. I want you, just real simple, to think about this. Communicating with respect sometimes just takes a little vulnerability. And as a leader, I know you have that in you. T, take ownership of the outcome. See, ownership is really what it's all about. Who you're speaking with, whoever it is that you're having this disagreement with, they have to take ownership. But really, who am I speaking to? I'm speaking to you. You have to take ownership for this conversation. And by taking ownership, you go back and you reflect on it and you think about things like, how could I have done this differently? What could I have said differently? How could I have improved the conversation? And what could it look like next time? What does growth look like for us? You see, as a leader, it's so important that you reflect on what happened, that you take ownership for your actions, and you recognize how you can grow from them, how you can become better, and how you can improve. Those kinds of questions are powerful questions to ask yourself, to journal on. Have you ever thought of that? Just journaling on it? See, sometimes we don't have to have the perfect outcome, but we can take time to take ownership of that outcome, to think about and reflect and become self-aware about how we could have handled ourselves better, how we could have handled the situation better, and how we can grow from it all. If you remember in the beginning of this video, I shared a personal story with you. I didn't get into personal details out of respect to the people involved, but I shared a personal story with you. And in that story, towards the end, I said, I came home and I reflected on it. That's the key there, is when you reflect on it, that's where the growth happens. See, you could be in the moment, you could be working on the thing, you could be in the disagreement, you could be in the challenge, but if you don't take the time to reflect on what could have been done better, because something always could have been improved, that's the growth mindset. Carol Dweck talks about the growth mindset, and that's what it's all about. It's about recognizing that we could always improve, we could always get better, we can always grow from challenges and from difficulties. So if you don't take the time to do that, well then you're not growing, you're not changing, you're not going to adapt to the situation next time, right? Because every disagreement is kind of the same. Every challenge that we encounter, every conversations that we don't really like, those hard conversations that we don't really like, they're kind of the same. You know, the argument with your spouse, the disagreement with a friend, the hard conversation with a coworker or with a team member, they all kind of follow the same model. And so if you take some time to reflect, take some ownership of your part in that conversation, in that disagreement, reflect on it about what you could have done differently, how it could have gone differently, and how you can grow from this, well then every conversation that you enter after, every disagreement that you enter after is only going to get better. You're going to get better at doing this. I remember I gave a speech a while back about this, and I started it with, how many of you want to be more Zen-like? And sometimes I wish I was more Zen-like. But that's what Zen is. Zen is really taking that pause, taking that breath, taking that time to respond thoughtfully and intentionally. Being Zen isn't just allowing hard conversations to just go over our heads or roll off our backs. It's about being able to engage with intention, being able to engage with the other person and reflect on it and grow from it. We're human beings. Growth is part of who we are. And as a leader, it's something that you have to embrace. Respect. That's it. That's what we just spelled out together. Respect. I mean, if there's one thing you take from this video, it's about respecting each other and yourself. This is the issue that most leaders fall into. It's communication. It's communicating without respect. So take this video, break it down for yourself in the next disagreement, in the next time that you have a tough conversation with somebody. In fact, I would encourage you to share this video, my framework here with you, to share it with that other person before the conversation. So you both can enter with the same mindset on how to be able to operate throughout that hard conversation. Take that moment to breathe. Take that moment to pause. Get yourself emotionally regulated. Make sure that you're listening to the other person. Make sure that you're listening to them respectfully, and that when you're engaging with them, you're asking them those open-ended questions that we spoke about. Think like a scientist. Go in with curiosity. Try to understand what they're saying. And when it's your turn to speak, make sure you're clear. State your case clearly. Acknowledge their feelings. Recognize that you're both going through a challenging situation here, but that you can get through it together by working on it, by thinking about solutions, by collaborating together. That unity is what's going to help your company culture. By communicating respectfully, by taking ownership and reflecting on what just happened, it's going to help you as a leader, and other people see it. Your team sees it, your family sees it, your friends see it, the contractors that work with you see it. When you're a leader who is self-aware, who leads not out of a place of authority, but out of a place of growth, of understanding, of emotional intelligence and emotional regulation, people recognize that. People want to work with leaders like you. They want to work with someone who's able to do the work that we just did. So keep on working on improving yourself. And again, as I've said before, I try to make these videos for you to help you. So if you want to work on your communication skills, your leadership skills, in order to create a better company culture, in order to create better partnerships, then make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And if this video brought you some value and you want to get more, then download the free PDF that goes along with this video. I want to thank you for putting your leadership first. I want to thank you for making sure that leadership and growth are part of your journey. And as always, thank you, stay happy, and stay healthy. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.